Around the SEC right here, I'm your host, Stephen Willis, along with Corey Burton, Jeb Beecham, and a special guest this week, Israel Troupe, is going to join us. Both Israel and Corey are from the Believe in Georgia Dog podcast. Surprise, we're going to talk a little bit Alabama and Georgia in a second, and they might have something to say about it. Before we get started, let's talk a little social advertising. You can follow us at the Stephen Willis or at Old Positively. Of course, you can like us on our Facebook page at Positively Ole Miss. Join our Facebook group as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Positively Ole Miss. And of course, you can follow us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. Hey, Corey, why don't you advertise your podcast?
Yeah, Israel and I, we do the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. And you got 100% of the Believe in Georgia Dogs show now. Used to host one half of that now. Now my better half, I should say, is joining us. And Israel, man, it's a pleasure to have you on. You can follow us at Believe in Dogs on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Facebook and Instagram. You can follow myself at Coach Burton36 if you want a little bit of coaching stuff as well. You can follow that Twitter account. I retweet a lot of coaching nuggets and things like that. And then, of course, Israel, where can we follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at TroopStar28. On Instagram, all of them are the same. I have a hard time remembering passwords and usernames, so I keep them all the same. And you can follow me as well. I'm a football coach. I tweet different nuggets, and I'm a halftime comedian as well. So get on there and follow me and enjoy yourself.
Steve and I might come see you at Zany's if you're down to perform your comedy routine. So
hey, I'm already ready for it.
A little open mic night.
Yeah,
believe it, baby. Believe it.
Hey, he can be the headliner. I'll open up for you. I'll get all the booze out of the way so that you can only be funnier.
Hey, I'm the next Kevin Hart in my mind, so I'm ready to rock and roll.
You're just a few inches taller.
Just a little bit.
You can follow Jeb Beecham at Stolen Grin on Twitter as well. Didn't want to leave you out, Jeb. Kind of be inclusive today.
I appreciate it.
Nice.
All right. As you can see, we have a full house here tonight, and we have a lot to talk about. And unfortunately, a lot of what we have going on is COVID related. LSU and Florida have already postponed, as well as Vandy and Missouri. We're waiting to hear about Georgia and Alabama at this time, but as of now, Nick Saban is positive. The athletic director is positive. It could throw a monkey wrench on an otherwise tense game that who knows what was going to happen. It was set up as the immovable object versus the irresistible force, but now it's just thrown into chaos.
Oh yeah, it's COVID has done that for quite a few things, especially the NFL. It has now reached its way to the SEC and is now wreaking havoc. The Florida linebacker room caught a big dose of it. Vandy, Missouri, they caught a big dose of it, and now we're starting to starting to see everything unravel. So I'm willing to see if too many of these games get canceled, if they don't just go ahead and call it a weekend and move all of these games to the makeup weekend of December 12th.
I got a good feeling that's probably going to happen. You know, Corey, with me and you, we've been dealing with it at the high school level, and COVID's not going anywhere. So I think a lot of guys just gotta make do with what you got. You know, it's an unfortunate situation, but it's not going anywhere. So I think you just got to do the best you can, and if you can make up that game or find that open week, like you said, everybody make up the game they miss. I think we'll be fine.
If I can ask, December 12th, will that be the weekend before the SEC championship?
Correct.
Yeah.
So would it be a good possibility of Georgia versus Alabama twice in a row?
Could be.
Yeah, possibly.
That would be interesting.
It very much could be, especially with Florida not being able to stop anybody right now. So we'll just see how that goes.
Defense is optional in this league as of right now.
Yeah,
first time ever.
Yeah, the league that prides itself so much on defense just Georgia is the only school that can stop anybody. Although Tennessee can play a little bit of defense as well, but
They dabble.
Yeah. Lane Kiffin just scored another touchdown on Nick Saban, and it's crazy.
And Mike Bobo just scored another one on Vandy.
Well, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's not exactly hard to do.
I think even my team could score on Vandy at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be a long year for the old Commodores.
That's
their hearts.
No doubt.
Bless their hearts.
So, question for you guys: do they move on from Derek Mason? Is that almost a foregone conclusion at this point?
They've got to make up that money first, you would think. It depends on how many years he has left on his contract, what his buyout is, because the last athletic director got him in a bit of financial trouble to begin with, and then COVID happened. I think Derek Mason might get another year just because they can't do anything about it right now.
I agree, because it's bad over there, and that athletic department's in turmoil. I mean, they were letting people go right when COVID hit, so you can tell that they had something going on over there. But I mean, Derek Mason's trying to do what he can do with the limited resources he has. So, I mean, he's a great coach in my opinion. I just think he's been dealt a bad hand right now over there at Vandy.
Yeah,
I agree with that too.
He's got two good coordinators. Go ahead, Jeb.
It does seem like there's good excuses for him for this year, because he had a lot of players opt out as well. So he's a lot of opt out, a lot of COVID. It's hard to blame him for what's going on at Vandy right now.
And if something happens and they do let him go, he'll be unemployed for about 5 minutes, because he really is a national championship level defensive coordinator. So he's going to move on into a blue blood program and probably win immediately.
Most definitely. And one thing I've noticed about his team is that even though they might not be athletically as good as everybody else, but they play hard now. I mean, they just don't have the Jimmys and the Joes to go with all the other horses in the SEC.
That is the truth, and they flat get after you, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I think just him playing coordinator shuffle has been, him managing the head coaching position has been a bit of a train wreck. But I think he's, obviously he didn't forget how to coach, and he's a heck of a defensive coordinator. And I would expect to see him land on his feet and
I think he might be at Ole Miss here in a minute if they let him go. So keep your eyes open for that one. I'm calling it right now.
Ooh.
How much of an upgrade would that be from DJ Durkin?
Honestly, at this point, we don't know, because they missed half of fall camp because of COVID in the wide receiver room, or in the defensive back room, and then they're going from the 3-4 to the 4-3, kind of sideline to sideline, and they just don't have the linebackers for it. It's honestly a situation where they're just going to have to recruit their way out of this, no matter who's in charge.
And Steve, I really, this just comes down to the fact that I just don't believe in DJ Durkin. I don't believe in his schemes. I don't think he's very sound. I think there was a reason why he was an analyst on Saban's radar. A lot of it was, personal rehabilitation of him just doing showing weird videos and almost psychologically torturing the players at Maryland. But if you have a chance to get somebody like a Will Muschamp or a Derek Mason, you say, all right, DJ, it's been real. Get the hell out of here, so we can get some, so we can get a top-notch coordinator. That would, Ole Miss would turn into an instant contender overnight if that happened.
Yeah, I hear you.
Just don't squirt water on me when I come over the sideline.
Oh man, don't get me started on that, boy. Got somebody. So you talking about somebody was mad when I saw that?
I didn't see it. I was like, what in the hell I was like, we got a personal foul. How? It's like we hit him when he was still in bounds, and I tried to figure it out, and they showed the replay. I was like, oh, yep, can't do that. Come on, George. Jeez.
Come on, baby.
Yeah, it's a situation
anymore.
Yeah, he's so talented, but the immaturity just rears its head at just inopportune times at this moment.
Yeah, and Tennessee goes right down the field in that same drive and throws that pass over there in the corner. I'm like, if they don't get that, I don't think they get a first down at all in that series, and then they don't go down and score. So, we spotted them 7 points with a snap over the head, and then we go and do something stupid like that. It's just like, what are we doing, guys?
I mean, we gave them all 21 points. I mean, we go for that fourth down and don't get it, and then they hit a pass the very next play. We get that stupid penalty, and then that god awful snap that even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar couldn't handle.
I agree. Outside of 2 or 3 really good passes by Jerry Garantano, Tennessee had no. Georgia's defense was great that entire game. It was just penalties, shooting yourself in the foot, which Tennessee was doing the same thing. The difference is in the second half, Georgia stopped doing that, fixed their mistakes. Tennessee did not at all.
Well, Israel, you and I know, and Tennessee fans are learning this about Jim Chaney, is great game planner. He's great from, Sunday to Friday, putting in the game plan. And, usually first quarter, second quarter, things are going well. But then halftime hits and Jim Chaney just falls off a cliff and teams adjust and he doesn't. And that's where you kind of start to see the decline. I mean, every big game that Georgia lost, you could point to a steady decline in the second half when teams started ratcheting up the pressure. Tennessee fans are starting to learn that. Georgia fans knew that coming in.
Man, every time we get something going, we're like in the first half, I'm like, okay, it's about to get ugly for the other team, and then it keeps mulling along, and then all of a sudden we're losing. It's like, dadgum, and then now you see Tennessee do the same thing. Now, on the other hand, Georgia did a great job of adjusting at halftime. And then, like I said, without those penalties, I mean, Tennessee really doesn't piss a drop in the first half, So I think the game plan for him was pretty simple. It's take what you can get. And Georgia, as we all know, Georgia's not given very much.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And you look at Kirby's defense, it just takes time. They're like a boa constrictor. And the more you struggle at the end, the worse it gets. And Jared Garantano just started forcing it and kind of trying to do more than he could do. And that led to more trouble and more trouble and more trouble. And next thing you know, you're down by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, in the blink of an eye. I mean, you give up horrible field position to start the second half where you take a strip sack and fumble. And, that just got the ball rolling.
All right.
One thing I love about our defense is that we are very opportunistic now. We are a very opportunistic defense, and I love every minute of it.
Yes, indeed. All right, around the SEC, segment 1 in the books. Stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen. As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Around the SEC, Stephen Willis, along with Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham, along with Israel Troupe, who is visiting us for the week. We're going to do something a little bit different this segment, this block, because Alabama and Georgia is the undoubted game of the week. Now, we have some COVID issues and a lot of unknowns, but we're going to proceed like it's going to happen as usual. But I figure this this little block, we'll just do Georgia and Bama and really nothing else, and kind of just break down all aspects of that game.
I'm with that.
Let's get it going.
So, looking at this game, a lot of factors going in, Israel, Steve, Jeb. I mean, there's so many layers to this matchup. It's obviously it's this year's Alabama LSU kind of enormous, huge, a lot of implications matchup going on. Coach Saban has testing positive for corona. That has to change some things. I have to assume that there's going to be some grad assistant on the sideline holding a giant iPad with Nick Saban's face on it, and him coaching from home. You gotta think that that's going to happen. But in all seriousness, there's some weapons starting to emerge from Georgia on the Georgia side. We know what Alabama has offensively, but I'm gonna ask you guys this. And Steve, since you saw this defense really firsthand, more in depth than I probably did, I enjoyed it as a fan. You probably enjoyed it as more than a fan from the Ole Miss perspective, and didn't enjoy the result, but enjoyed the journey of it. So, what is Alabama's defense? Can they recover from giving up almost a half a century to Ole Miss?
I think Alabama really struggled with rapid fire tempo in that game. And everything, and this goes back to when Kirby was at Alabama, and it's kind of a Nick Saban thing. They want to always match up with what you're doing offensively. When there's not enough time to do that, it really discombobulates what they're doing. It kind of puts them into pressure. Mm-hmm. So I think the defense this week is going to be much, much better. Because of the way that they do things with Todd Monken and such, more pro style and methodical.
Yeah, I mean, Israel, judging from what we've seen and what we've seen from Saban's teams of the past where they struggle with tempo, you have to think Todd Monken is thinking about going tempo a little bit and trying to get guys in space and trying to get guys lined up fast and try to prevent a lot of these substitutions.
I think so. After watching us play Tennessee, you kind of saw it a little bit. They go a little bit of tempo, and Tennessee couldn't quite figure it out because they haven't seen it before. And after watching the Alabama and Ole Miss game, and I watched a replay of it too, I mean, Ole Miss was snapping the ball now. It was boom, get the play, snap the ball. And to that point, it was amazing to me to see that the players and a couple of coaches were saying that they were stealing signals. And I was like, there's no way, because Ole Miss snapping the ball before Alabama was even set on a bunch of those plays. So, I mean, tempo beats people, but tempo can also get you beat if you're not smart. So, I think if Monken comes in with a game plan, all right, we're going to use tempo, all right, we're going to slow it down, and mixing it up a little bit and taking shots, I think we'll be fine this weekend.
So is this the week that Stetson Bennett is – I mean, we keep saying this every week, and he keeps, proving us right. But is this the weekend he truly breaks out and everybody's like, wow, that's Stetson Bennett?
I think if Stetson Bennett wins this game, I think they're going to put a statue right next to Coach Dooley at the Butts-Mehre if he wins this football game, because he has overcome so much, and he has stayed even keeled the whole entire time and hasn't given up. And he's getting his chance to shine, and he is going out and performing.
So, Jeb, in watching that game last week, my opinion right now is my favorite back on this team is Kenny McIntosh, followed by Kendall Milton. I think Zamir right now is third best running back on Georgia's backfield. What stood out to you watching that Tennessee game with the Georgia backfield, and how do you think it's gonna shake out with them?
Well, I agree. I went into the game assuming Zamir would be the guy that we saw the most of and that played the best. But honestly, he didn't. You're right. He didn't look the best. And sometimes that's just because if your top back comes in, teams are ready for you to run more than some of the. I think one was a freshman, so maybe they just weren't ready for it. But honestly, who was the freshman that played a bit there in the game for Georgia?
Kendall Milton. Yeah, and he looked really good. But I was very impressed by him. Of course, y'all's offensive line was getting the better of our Tennessee's defensive line for a lot of the game, so that helped a lot. But honestly, he looked a lot better than Zamir to me.
Who is number 7?
That's Jermaine Burton. He's a freshman receiver.
Okay.
Receiver, yeah. No,
Yeah, he's somebody that's emerging.
Yeah, he's legit.
I'll be interested to see how Alabama's defense rebounds in this game, honestly, because I think, and I may be giving him too much credit, but I think Lane Kiffin just knew how to keep Alabama off on their toes and just really kind of keep off balance. That's what I'm trying to say, the whole game. And I don't know if Georgia can do that with their offense as well as Ole Miss did. So I think it's going to be kind of a fun matchup to see how good Georgia really is, because I think Georgia's defense against Alabama's offense is going to be an amazing matchup anyway. So it'd be great to see if Georgia's offense can match up with Alabama's defense. So can't wait for this.
Yeah, it's the irresistible force versus the immovable object whenever Alabama's on offense, and then it's average whenever Georgia's on offense, average versus average. It's fascinating.
Yeah, can Dylan Moses can he carry the defense, get everybody lined up correctly, and can he help a lot of this inexperience kind of get by, really? What do you think, Israel? Is there anybody that's standing out to you on this Crimson Tide defense besides Dylan Moses and anybody that you feel could be, a problem for this Georgia offense?
This is the first time, and don't quote me on this because I'm not real sure. This is the first time that I haven't heard a player from Alabama just being a dominant force, just, him, just being one guy that just takes over the game, and then a bunch of supporting cast members. And right now they look a little lost to me, just from an outside guy looking in. They just look a little lost. Like there's no way in the world I would have thought that Ole Miss would put almost 50 on an Alabama defense. Even with Lane Kiffin there, I thought that maybe they would come out and shut it down for a little bit, but they didn't. And Lane had a great game plan for them, and they never really adjusted until the latter part of that fourth quarter. And got a couple stops there to win the football game. But this is the first time since 2008, that Alabama's has no one on defense that really scares me or really makes me go like, oh man, we should not go at that guy. I think if we put our head down and we go to work, I think it's going to be a great game. I think Georgia comes on top on the end.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tight all the way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see if Stetson Bennett in the quarterback run game becomes a factor in this, because whenever Alabama struggles, they kind of go into that warm shell of two-man in the back, and you can't play two-man against a running quarterback.
Not at all. And you started to see the zone read a little bit. Stetson even scored on a zone read, and where he just pulled it. And so many times last year we saw Jake Fromm just give it into a loaded box, and if he'd have kept it, he could have probably moonwalked into the end zone and did a few cartwheels. But somebody like Stetson's going to pull it and really make you pay for it. And so I'm excited to see that, and I'm excited to kind of see if Kyrus Jackson can keep it rolling, if George Pickens can finally really make a true impact, something that he hasn't really done on a consistent basis this year. See if the freshman Jermaine Burton, who you referenced as number 7, see if he can continue to make strides in his development. See what the tight ends can do. Israel, the tight end position is going to be vital to this game plan, and I think getting Trey McKitty back in the lineup is huge. Getting Fitzpatrick in there is more of a run blocker. He can assume his role that he was recruited for, more so with McKitty and Darnell Washington being the role of kind of more of the universal guys or more of the pass catchers.
And I'm excited to see these tight ends get rolling. Right now they're just run blockers right now, but I'm excited to see what they do with the ball in their hands. I know we've got some great guys over there, but I hadn't really seen them emerge as a threat, as a guy that can go out there and, make plays for you at the tight end position. So I'm excited to see if we get them going instead of just putting them in line and making them block.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Steve, I'm going to flip over to the defense. So when you come up and analyze Georgia's defense, what what player really stands out to you and jumps out of the page from an outsider's perspective?
Well, it's not really a single player. It's the way that Kirby Smart and the defensive coordinator has them drilled, and they just become like a boa constrictor, and they just take you away, and they put a little more pressure and a little bit more pressure and a little bit more pressure on you until eventually you just give in. And next thing, like I said, like last week, you're down by 3 touchdowns. You don't know what happened, and your offense isn't working anymore.
That's pretty fair. I mean, I think the fact that he has stellar dudes like day 2, day 3 NFL guys at all 3 levels. I mean, you have Azeez Ojulari, Jordan Davis on the defensive line. One is a pass rusher, the other is as a nose guard in the run game, and then you have Monty Rice, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker at the inside linebacker level. A couple of those guys are younger; they're not yet draft eligible, but when they are, I think they're going to be studs. And then you have on the back end, probably one of the best safeties in the game, and he's emerging. Is that a lot of people don't really know his name just yet, because I've always said he is solidly spectacular. Like he doesn't make any flashy plays because he's already there. He just gets there with a quickness and he hits you, and he's got you on the ground. And Israel, would you say that's a pretty fair, accurate description of Richard LeCounte's game? It's just unspectacularly great.
Yes, he's just always in the right place at the right time. I remember seeing him. We had a paddock camp when he was at Liberty, and he was in high school, and I mean, he was all over the field. One time he was at linebacker, he'd be at free safety. One time he was even at defensive end. So you have to account for him anywhere he is on the field, and he's the quarterback of that defense. He gets them lined up, he gets them going, and if somebody's out of place, he's able to go because he knows the defense. He's able to go and make a play on the football, and that's what Kirby wanted from him as a freshman, because he was highly recruited as a freshman, and he kind of had not really a bad year, but it wasn't what Kirby wanted expectation-wise. But he's emerged as one of the best safeties in the SEC right now, and you couldn't ask for him to do any more. Just hope he stays healthy, and he's got a great head on his shoulders too, as you can tell. He's the leader of that defense, and they follow him. Whatever he says, they do it, and you can see that those guys have been playing together for a long time, and they remind me of the old Alabama defense. They're just together, and they know what to do. That's a testament to that defensive staff doing such a great job with him.
Steve, Eric Stokes is probably going to be shadowing Jalen Waddle. I have a feeling that the matchup to watch is going to see who can come out there and guard Devontae Smith. If they're going to be mixing up zone and man anyway, but when they go man coverage, you got to think probably DJ Daniel is not going to draw coverage on Devontae Smith just because of prior burntness due to him getting burnt by Joshua Palmer last week. So I have to think Tyson Campbell's probably. I know. I think Tyson Campbell's going to be on him, truthfully. But it's Toast DJ Toast Daniel. There you go. How about that for a nickname?
Well, I think at this point, with Alabama's wide receivers, the only way to stop them is to get pressure on Mac Jones, because Jalen Waddle is in a class by himself and is practically uncoverable from the slot. And Devontae Smith and John Mechie just provide just enough talent to make it to where you can't really bracket anybody. And then they have Miller Forrestall at tight end that just sneaks out and catches a touchdown. But their wide receivers are probably some of the best in football. So the only way you can stop them is to get pressure.
Well, we've seen Georgia do that in this last game, so we know they can get after the quarterback. And it'll be up to Alabama's offensive line to see if they can stop that. Tennessee's could not, and Tennessee has a great offensive line. So
there we go. Around the SEC, Georgia and Alabama. This Saturday night, I believe, this 8 o'clock Eastern game. on CBS. I think the Masters is this weekend or something, to where the COVID pushed it back to where the CBS game is the night game. We're going to come back and do a little rapid fire SEC on Around the SEC.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen. As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Welcome back to Around the SEC. Thanks for listening. We're going to hit our conference preview. Remember, we're going to proceed as if these games are going to happen. If something happens in the next couple of days, don't blame us, basically. Auburn and South Carolina. It's a battle of Mike Bobo and Auburn's defense and Chad Morris versus Will Muschamp. It's kind of a discombobulated mess at Auburn, and South Carolina is just an okay team. I really am liking what South Carolina is doing, and Auburn's just a mess. It may not come down to what they're doing at all, though.
Yeah, I mean, Israel, you played for Mike Bobo, so you can kind of see the direction that offense is going, and they're starting to kind of. They're going to be like the no-name offense that performs better than you expect, and they're a team that's slowly getting better. And Auburn is a team that is slowly gearing towards Gus Malzahn joining Derek Mason in the I'm looking for a job category.
I think so. Right now, it looks like Auburn's about to be, well, it would be 7-5 if it wasn't for COVID. But after watching them against Arkansas, and they don't look like Auburn. They hadn't looked like Auburn in a while, but it's something over the. I don't know if it's something in the water or what, but Auburn's struggling right now, and I picked them to, put up a fight in the SEC West, but right now they're struggling a little bit. So, like you said, Coach Bobo's got those guys on offense over there rolling. I think they're starting to figure it out a little bit on defense. Even though it was Vandy, but you can start to tell that those guys knew what to do. So COVID's kind of got a hold on that as well. So I think if they come in and kind of do the same thing they did against they played Vandy last game, correct? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if they come in, with that same energy and everything like that, I think South Carolina's going to pull the upset over Auburn this weekend.
I wouldn't be too surprised. Auburn definitely looks worse than I expected coming into the season, and South Carolina is looking better and better every week, like you said. So I think South Carolina is good at controlling the clock, and Auburn's gotten kind of lucky in some of their games. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see South Carolina take over this game in the end.
I hope that referee crew sent a fruit basket over there to Arkansas for what they did this weekend. Everybody saw that was a fumble, and they owe them an apology immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Arkansas should be 2-1 in the SEC right now.
They absolutely should. And they outplayed Auburn, and they deserved it, and they got robbed. So, Auburn's going to get their due karma here this week. I think South Carolina, again, is a team that's on the rise. Auburn is heading in the opposite direction. I don't know what's going on. Israel, you hit the nail on the head. They're just discombobulated. I think Malzahn's just grasping at straws at this point, and this defense is playing uncharacteristically poorly under Kevin Steele, and I think Bo Nix cannot be 100% of your offense, and he can't get the ball to Stove and Seth Williams and Anthony Schwartz, and Tank Bigsby is not quite your premier running back that he thought that he was going to be, and now he's being relied on to be that guy, and he's not that guy yet, and so things are kind of falling apart down there, and we'll see what happens. So I as of right now, it's just a 3-point spread, and I like South Carolina.
12 months. Yeah, 12 months ago, if somebody told you Auburn was going to play LSU in 2020 and be the 2 worst teams in the SEC West, would you believe them?
No way. Ain't no way.
Not a chance.
All right, Texas A&M and Mississippi State this weekend. Basically, we've discovered the kryptonite for the air raid, and that is rushing 3 and dropping 8 on every single play. No variation, no need for game planning. Just do that on every single play. And bad news from Mississippi State, Texas A&M is a zone team.
They are indeed, and they found something this weekend when they beat Florida. I don't know if they can sustain it. I don't know if they're good enough to sustain it, but they found something. And I think that this weekend against Mississippi State, I think they're good enough, even on some of their more bad days, that they can overtake Mississippi State. But for the Pirate, I think I don't want to be quick to judge because he doesn't have all of his guys in yet. He's got a few resistors in his squad as well. He probably needs to do a little house cleaning, if you know what I mean. But I think this matchup just is going to come down to, can Kellen Mond deliver the mail and deliver it consistently? When he does, A&M's offense is pretty good. When he doesn't, it's worse than bad. And I really, in watching their game, I really like the development of Isaiah Spiller. I think he's turning into a pretty good running back, and I think he'll continue to improve week in and week out. And if they can somehow mix up their offense and truly find that balance, I think they could develop into a pretty good team. They just have to decide that, A, we're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot. B, we're going to learn how to manage the clock at the end of the half. And C, Kellen Mond's just got to play. He's got to play consistently, and he's got to play like what everybody thought he was going to be coming into the season. So I think A&M's going to win this one handily, but down the road, they've got to improve those things.
Most definitely. After watching them against Florida, if Mississippi State thinks that they're going to drop back and just blitz and play off man against them, he's going to throw a slant every single time. So I wouldn't do that if I was Mississippi State. But Kellen Mond showed me a little bit last week. He's always been tough, in my opinion. But, he showed me a little moxie last week, delivering passes. Got a little trash talking in there too last week. So I think A&M win this one handily. Because, like you said, if you drop 8, drop 8's really hard if you don't have any zone beaters within that air raid offense.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to say I really like Mike Leach as a coach. I think he's going to have better games than he's had the last couple. Maybe not on that LSU game level too often in the SEC, but I think he'll get better. I don't think it'll happen this week, though. I agree. I think A&M finally got it together this last week, and if they can keep playing even on that level, even without improving, they'll still be able to beat Mississippi State this week.
All right, Ole Miss versus Arkansas, 2 mirror images, Jeff Lebby and Kendall Briles, brother-in-law. It's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, Arkansas doesn't have the players offensively that Ole Miss has. They do have the better defense of the two teams. It should be interesting to watch. I anticipate a very high-scoring game.
Yeah, I'm taking the over-under, and the fact that it's a 2.5-point spread, Vegas is basically saying, throwing their hands up, saying, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know who to pick. Just pick whoever you want. It's basically a pick 'em, and I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. I think Sam Pittman is somebody that can motivate anybody to do anything. Ole Miss is about as exciting as it gets offensively. Steve, I keep pointing back to our series back in the spring, the offense, the boot camp, And if you go back and listen to that, and then you go back and watch Ole Miss so far, I think we're pretty spot on as far as what we feel like they were going to do, and the concepts they were going to try to instill, and we're starting to see all of that stuff developing as we go week in and week out. So Ole Miss can score the points. They've got to find a way to get a few stops so that they can actually come out ahead in some of these matchups.
Watching Arkansas in the rain last week was impressive to me. They looked like they knew what they were doing. And I'm telling you, Felipe Franks looked good last week. So I think it just comes down to, this one too, who's going to make a stop, and I put that on Arkansas because, as I said earlier, in all our shows before, Corey, Coach Odom is a dang good defensive coordinator, and those guys are playing some really good football, and they are physical. And they get to the football. So if they can get pressure on the quarterback this week, I think it's in Arkansas's favor. If not, then it's going to be a long night for Arkansas.
They got to contain Matt Corral and John Reese Plumlee, and those two guys would, if they could break contain and slip the pocket, make some plays with their feet. It's also going to be a long night for Arkansas. So you got to keep those guys pinned up in the pocket and force them to, to throw under duress and take a few shots and things like that. But I mean, there's two good playmakers there at the quarterback position. So, they're going to have their hands full. Arkansas is, but so is Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, Felipe Franks, as you said it, he's gotten better each week, and he's improved each week. His decision making is better than it has been. And he's starting to develop a little confidence, and you get a little confidence and your decision-making improves, you can be a dangerous quarterback in this league. And so, I'm happy for Felipe. I'm glad he found a good situation. Kendall Browse is a, great offensive mind. He's under that tempo and, quick passing and, try to control the line of scrimmage by spreading them out and keeping them guessing and running side to side. And if the defense is worn out, they can't rush. And so that's kind of the overbearing philosophy with both of these coordinators, actually. So it'll be a fun, really like looking in the mirror at each other type game.
Yes. And Kentucky going to Knoxville to take on Tennessee. I'm looking forward to this one because this is going to be maybe an SEC 1997 game where they just go in there and knock the hell out of each other.
Is Peyton Manning versus Tim Couch? Is that the matchup?
Yeah.
No?
Kentucky wishes.
Am I a little late on this? Okay.
That could very well be. Tennessee is – I don't know. You get a lot of fans, and I'm coming at this from the fan perspective, but, we've been saying for years that, Tennessee's rebuilding and they're going to be back. I don't think anybody seriously thought Tennessee was going to be back to competing for the SEC this year. But I do think that Jeremy Pruitt's a good coach and got us on the way. And I think they're better than they played last week. Georgia just has one of the best defenses I've seen in a long time. Kentucky's defense is very good too, but I think Tennessee will have more success against it. And I expect a better game from them this week where they're much more competitive. And I think they'll be able, with Kentucky being a little more one-dimensional on offense and Tennessee's defense really not being that bad this year. I like a lot of the playmakers we have there. I think Tennessee will be able to win this.
Kentucky can't stop the forward pass, so you got that one in your favor.
Yes, that is indeed. We I say that every week when we pick Kentucky, and sometimes and I've been foolishly picking Kentucky. I foolishly picked them against Ole Miss. Shouldn't have done that. But let me ask you guys this about Tennessee. With their quarterback situation, because they're in like a weird spot where, Guarantano has been just good enough. But if they're in a position where they're young at a lot of positions or they're developing some depth, do you go ahead and go with the freshman and, start kind of sticking them in there to see what you have and see if there's any sort of spark in the pass game? Or do you stick with Guarantano? What do we do with this quarterback situation in Tennessee?
Not until the season is basically lost. You wouldn't do that with one loss. You would probably do that if there was three. If they lost to Kentucky, you would think about it. If you lost one more, then it would become an option.
And I don't think Jeremy Pruitt's the type that's going to move to a true freshman. he seems to be really committed to Jared Garantano for whichever reason.
Or even just any of the other guys on the roster. I know he played a little bit of quarterback carousel last season.
And I'm kind of surprised he didn't try it a little more this year. Last season, Jared did a lot better if you just benched him for a couple drives. He would come in and play much better the rest of the game. Sometimes some people just need a kick, I guess, in games. I don't know why. But I kept expecting to see that in this last game, especially after the 3 turnovers in a row that starts the third quarter. I kind of assumed that, or at least near turnovers for him. I kept expecting them to bench him at least for a drive, but they didn't try that this year like they did last year.
He turned into old Jared in the second half last week.
Oh yeah, it was rough. But I mean, I'm crediting a lot of that to Georgia's defense. Like I said, I think Georgia was making a lot of mistakes that kept them from being that good in the first half. They just corrected them, and it wasn't that the Tennessee started playing worse. I think Georgia started playing better, but I don't think that they, like I said, they would turn to a true freshman. I do want to point out for Harrison Bailey anyway. For the other two, maybe, but I do want to point out that I think reports came out this week where they were just talking about practices and were mentioning that Harrison Bailey had really come on and was having great practices this week and looking really good. So it got a lot of the rumor mill started about that, but I really don't think they'll do it.
Yeah, as a head coach, when you're going into, especially in the SEC, starting a freshman quarterback's tough, even with the struggles that you may have. So I think if they really want to put Harrison Bailey in the game, I think he has to show them at practice that he's ready. And judging by even last week not putting him in, you said I don't think they think he's ready yet. So it'd be hard pressed to see him in the game, but I'm not naive to know that they'll pull the switch and he'll be in, and you never know what might happen. He may create that spark.
Well, I wouldn't be too surprised if they started that quarterback carousel you mentioned from last year, maybe with JT or Brian Mara. But
now that Georgia's out of the way and Mara doesn't have to look at Eric Stokes, he might actually play well.
Yeah, true.
I'm going to keep rubbing that in. Just so
Oh, all right. One more segment to go. Picks right for this.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen. As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Welcome back to Around the SEC. It's picks time. Just to fill everybody in, I am currently 13-8 overall against the spread. Becky is also 13-8. Jeb is 10-11, and Corey is bringing up the rear at 9-12.
Told you guys, fade my picks and you'll make a lot of money.
Actually, it's kind of impressive seeing Becky do all this because she really just learned about the spread this year. So it kind of shows you how much either she's a savant or just extremely lucky so far this season. All right, game one, Auburn -3 versus South Carolina. I'm taking Will Muschamp's boys, South Carolina, to cover the spread.
I decided to go with Auburn.
To me.
Oh, go ahead.
Auburn. All right. The dumpster fire. No. I probably typed in 3 different times Auburn, South Carolina, Auburn, South Carolina, Auburn, South Carolina. I probably typed both of those things in about 3 or 4 times. But In thinking about it and watching them last week against Vanderbilt and knowing what I know about Coach Bobo offense, I'm going to take the Gamecocks, and I think it's going to start to turn ugly for Auburn.
I'm taking the Gamecocks in this one. I think, like you said, I think if Coach Bobo if that train can get rolling this weekend, that defense picks up where they left off last week. After watching Auburn, I don't know, and especially after watching them against us, I don't know what's going on over there. So I'm taking the Gamecocks in this one.
All right. That's good. That's a great choice.
All right, Jeb, what was your pick?
Well, I decided to go with Auburn, and I was the same way as Corey. I went back and forth on this a few times, but I know South Carolina is playing better than I expected. It seems to be getting better game by game, and Auburn is honestly playing a lot worse than I expected. But I just feel like Auburn is too good of a team to keep playing like they've been playing, and they're going to get together at some point, and why not this week? We'll see.
All right. Kentucky is getting 6 points against Tennessee in Knoxville. I'm going to go with Rocky Top. 2 mirror image teams. Tennessee is a little bit further along.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going with Tennessee as well. I've been picking against my team, but I feel like this week they're going to come back out and want to make a statement after that loss to Georgia.
Yeah, I think, again, Steve, you're correct about the teams being 2 mirror image of each other, but I think Tennessee's better in the passing game than Kentucky. Kentucky has trouble stopping the pass, and I think Tennessee's a little bit more balanced. And I really, really, really impressed with Joshua Palmer at the wide receiver position, and I think Tennessee is going to – I think they're going to win by 10.
I think I'm going with Tennessee as well. I think they got a bad taste in their mouth last week. Kentucky's pretty much one-dimensional. So I think Tennessee and Rocky Top fans are going to have something to cheer for this weekend.
All right. Ole Miss giving up 2.5 points versus Arkansas in Fayetteville. Fayetteville, though, to people that might not know, has been a house of horrors for Ole Miss. They go up there, they think they're going to win, something happens, they end up getting blown out at times. So there's a little bit of trepidation on that one, but I'm going to take Ole Miss in this one because I just think their offense is that much better than Arkansas's.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly, I like Arkansas. What they've done this year has actually been quite impressive to watch them because I thought they were going to be just terrible, but they are not at all. They're much better than I thought. But Ole Miss's offense is just impressive. It's just overall impressive. Again, as a Tennessee fan, it's hard to say nice things about Lane Kiffin, but he has matured into a really good coach, and I think they're gonna be able to take down Arkansas pretty easily.
Yeah, I think as great as Arkansas has been playing, as physical as they are, and as much improved as they are on offense with the 2 tray lines, I still think I would describe Ole Miss's offense as overwhelming, and a team that can really pour it on. If you let them. If you give them a slight opening, they'll kick the door open, and next thing you know, you can blink, and they've scored 14 points. And that's just kind of how Ole Miss rolls. I think they have a lot of veteran experience on the offensive side of the ball, and that's going to help them in this matchup as they try to figure this defensive thing out. So I'm taking the Rebs.
I'm going to take Arkansas on this one, and let me tell you why. The defense goes against Kendall Browse every day. And Kendall Browse is an up-tempo guy. So I don't think the tempo is going to get him. It's going to be who is going to do their job on defense. And I think Arkansas has a bad taste in their mouth from last week, and they're going to come out fired up. If Ole Miss comes out fired up, then I think it's going to be a great matchup. But I think last week was a letdown for them. So I'm going to take a physical Arkansas team that has bought into what Coach Pittman is doing over there.
Okay, Texas. Have you picked Jeb?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Texas A&M is giving away 6.5 points to Mississippi State. I'm gonna go against the previous picks and take Texas A&M because Mike Leach has struggled the last 2 weeks going against 3-man fronts. Texas A&M is his own team. This is going to be the best version that he will see so far this season.
Yeah, I went with A&M as well. Mississippi State, like I said, I think Mike Leach is a good coach and will eventually have some good games again this season. But A&M has just finally started playing like the team we thought they might be. And I think they're going to be able to beat Mississippi State and cover that spread. So I'm going with A&M.
Yeah, I think this week, despite all of Jimbo Fisher's attempts to screw these games up with his poor clock management and inexplicably use or non-use of timeouts, I think he's going to survive all of that. Kellen Mond is playing really good right now, playing really well right now, and I think this offense is kind of humming along. Finally, it took about 3 games to get off the mat and get going, but they finally did. Let's see if they can sustain it. I think they do this week. Next week is another mystery, but for a team like A&M, you just got to look at them week to week, and this week is a great matchup for them, and so I'm going to take the Ags.
I'm taking the Aggies this weekend. Like you said, Kellen Mond's playing well. That defense looked really good. Although they did give up, quite a bit of points to Florida, but they held their own a couple times. And, I mean, Mississippi State's just struggling right now. So I'm taking the Aggies in this one.
All right, and Georgia getting 4 points in the game of the week this week against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. The GOAT, Nick Saban, is down with COVID. Get well soon, Coach. I'm taking the Georgia Bulldogs because I just don't know who to pick in this game, and I think it's going to be about a field goal game.
Well, before the Georgia fans get going, I'm going to be contrary and take Alabama in this one. And that's only because I feel like the Georgia offense, Alabama defense is going to be kind of a wash. And I know the Georgia defense is just great, but I think Alabama having 3 great receivers, a great running back, and the quarterback that's actually playing really well is going to find a way to score just enough to win this game.
And that's all absolutely valid. I think that's the reason why it's going to be a tight game. And I think Georgia has won enough or has battled enough in some tight situations that I think right now in this season, not always, but in this season, they know how to win and they know how to succeed in those tight situations. So I'm going to take Georgia in this. Call me Homer, call me whatever you want. But I just think that, what was needed in that shootout last week was a little bit of defense. And I think Georgia provides a little bit more than just a little bit of defense. And they're going to make things a lot tougher on Alabama than Ole Miss did. And, with Alabama's struggles on defense, Georgia's going to score some points too. And so you're going to see, can Georgia get some consistent stops? Can they get themselves some favorable field position and score some points? And can their defense be just as stingy as it has been so far this season? I think it will, and I'm gonna pick the Dogs.
If I'm Georgia, I'm thinking 2nd and 26, and the SEC championship game. I'm coming out fired up in Tuscaloosa. Coach Saban, no Coach Saban. I think it's all about Georgia, and I think if we do what we're supposed to do, we execute like we're supposed to. We don't have a first half like we had last week. I think it's a 3-point game, and it's basically just going to come down to who can be more physical and who makes less mistakes than the other team. I think they said Coach Sarkisian's taking over for Coach Saban since he's gone. But that doesn't even matter. It could be anybody over there on the sideline. If Georgia takes care of Georgia, we handle our business, I think we come out with a victory, so I'm picking Georgia all the way.
All right. Around the SEC, that does it for this week. I want to say special thank you to Israel Troupe for coming by and spending some time with us today. And, of course, for Corey and Jeb, I'm Steve, and we will see you next week.